Welcome to the Responsible Supply Chain Show, where we explore the world of responsible sourcing and resilient supply chains. I'm your host, Justin Dillon, and in every episode, we dive into real stories from some of the world's best business, government, and thought leaders protecting people, planet, and profits. Let's get it. Episode 11. Look, I don't like to play favorites, but this one might be my favorite. There are lots of different kinds of intelligence or intelligent people out there. My favorite kind of intelligence is the kind that gives and doesn't take. I have found that people who really need me to know they are intelligent, they just wear me out. I don't know if you know these people. Maybe you know. I'm sure it's not you, but maybe you know these people. I like intelligent people who make me feel smart and curious, who give and don't take. They're not just trying to extract my attention and affection. They are actually interested in sharing their intelligence and making me smarter. That's exactly who we have on the show today. Her name is Deborah Dull. She's going to talk about circularity in supply chains and how it just might be the right formula to get us out of all of our problems. Every problem you have in the world, circularity might fix it. You just rub a little circularity on it when that red spot, and it's going to get it. It's going to get it right out. No, she is going to tell us about circularity, a topic that before this episode, I have to be honest, I knew nothing about. But first, I need to make an announcement. Freedom, who's our parent company, it's the company that I run, it's my day job, just had its quinceanera, it's a bar mitzvah, it's a pick your life event. We've moved out of our childhood phase and we have formally moved into teenage years, our adolescence. Freedom is no longer freedom. We are, wait for it, Freedom AI. I'm not kidding. It's the truth. Go to freedom.ai and you'll see, check out our new look. You'll never guess why we have, changed this. I understand that, everyone's saying putting AI on everything like it's ketchup, and I get it. And we're probably not any different. But for years quarters, maybe the last year, we have been working with AI. We are. I heard a couple weeks ago that, companies founded after like 2021 or 2023 are like post AI and, before or pre AI. I mean, my goodness, they're treating AI like the second coming, pre and AD, BC. Listen, we applied AI to what we are doing because we saw a way to be able to help our customers better. And I would think of it more as like a brand collab, Freedom and AI, like Warby Parker and Google, or based on current news, Meta and the Defense Department. I mean, think of Freedom and AI as that. We're more of a collab. What we get to do and the way that we're embedding it and solving our customers' problems. Man, what a great time to be in a tech company. It is bananas. It is so fun, so cool to see the types of problems we can solve at scale. So yeah, we're doing that. And speaking of solving problems, let's get on to our guest. Deborah Dull is the founder of the Circular Supply Chain Network and managing partner of Trillium Digital Services. Go check it out. She has authored books, and speaking of checking it out, she's authored tons of books. One's called Circular Supply Chain, 17 Common Questions. Again, trying to make the rest of us smart. And Sustainable Supply Chains, Unlearning for a Better Tomorrow. Just the titles of her books tells you that she wants to make all of us smarter. So let's get to it. Deborah, good to meet you, really, for the first time. Where am I finding you today?
Thanks, Justin, for having me on. I'm in San Diego today.
Wow. Just for today or often?
I'm trying to be here more. I'm wrapping up several years of a nomadic lifestyle. And so I'm attempting to have a base. But then I started a company. And so I am very rarely home.
Okay. Yeah. But, to call San Diego your maybe home, that's not that you did some research.
I did.
You did
I
some
did.
testing, didn't you?
I
Yeah,
did.
really
All over
good.
the world.
Yeah, I
Yes.
bet you did. You've got a big sample of locations. Well, you chose well. You whatever algorithm you're using for home, you've chosen well. It's so good to have you on this show. When I'm always excited to meet someone that I feel like I can learn a lot from. So I'm coming with I'm all gas, no brakes, all questions, no answers today for you. So buckle in.
Perfect.
Uh,
I'm ready.
okay, good. Well, I mean, and these questions, I'm not going to pretend like I know things because I'm a terrible liar. But I am really interested to learn more. You talk a lot about circularity, and you've written some books about it. It's a big deal for you. Um, hey, can you just explain circularity? It sounds like such a wonder. It almost sounds dimensional and like science fiction. Can you explain that to someone who doesn't know the term, like people who don't even understand sustainability? Can you explain circularity?
Totally.
Circularity, if I can say
It's
it.
like an inception situation. You're
That's
like,
it.
oh,
That's it. Yeah.
let's
Start
dig in.
there.
So the simplest idea is this. We have discovered that the inside of the planet is not an infinite space. And
Wow.
we have a limited amount of metal that we can pull out from inside the planet and use to fuel our supply chains and our economies. In fact, it's less than 50 years of known mineable metals like gold, silver, platinum, tungsten, the elements that run our world. There may come a time that we find more that we can mine, and this is sort of why this asteroid mining conversation is going. But
Now we're talking.
call me crazy. I think we have options easier than asteroid mining.
Yeah.
And that's where we get into this idea. So if the problem statement is we're actually going to run out of the materials that we need in order to do everything in society. And so if we can't get our materials from the planet, we need to get it from someplace else. And that someplace else is another supply chain, which then means our supply chains are going to start feeding each other in ways bigger than what they do today. And so then we look at how can we do this with the best margin? And the best option is to take a finished good, do as little as we can to it, and have somebody else pay us for it. And an example that we've all probably participated in is a used car. 30 years ago, you were crazy to buy a used car. What a terrible, it's like, oh, bad quality. Now the OEMs are actually doing certified pre-owned. So they put their mark of quality in their guarantee. And now all of a sudden, a certified pre-owned car becomes a really good deal because it's about half price for us. They don't put a lot of money into it. Happy day, everybody wins. And so the idea is first we start with a finished good. If you can't do that, then we start taking it apart. So refurbish it, maybe get the parts out of a car, remanufacture. And as the last resort, we'll recycle. The reason why recycling is the circle of last resort is because it takes a lot of time, money, energy. It often degrades the material. And so some people put recycling and circularity in the same bucket, but really there's a lot more that we can do to add value and get products back into our value chains. And so the easiest way to think about this is we need to fuel our supply chains with something. So we need to go find another source. And a lot of times you'll start to hear terms like urban mining, where we can take materials from cities. And so I think in the next probably 20 years, I actually think it's faster than that, we're going to be mining landfill. Because if you think about everything we throw away, it's a lot.
Yeah.
And so that stuff is just sealed up and sitting there. Not a lot happens to everything that we've thrown away for the last 50 years. And so there's a lot that we can start to mine and use that to feed our supply chains. So I'm going to leave it there.
Okay. So I actually learned a lot in those 2 minutes. So circularity is a bit more of an industrial process and less of a state. When we think of sustainability, we think of like everything's green and everything's working, but circularity is a bit more of like an industrial process. Is that our minds go to recycling because I literally just took mine out and I know what that is. I don't know what it means to pull the tantalum out of my Apple laptop.
Sure, totally. One of my favorite innovators in this space is a company called Moog out of DC. and they're an automated disassembly robotic arm. And they can take a server apart in 3.5 minutes. Why does this matter? As the cloud, the internet, AI, tech advances, which is doing very rapidly, the hardware that supports all of the fancy math that we use every day is moving rapidly as well. So it's getting more and more efficient. So we need less and less server space to accomplish the same amount of compute. Therefore, servers need to be upgraded. And so option one is you scrap the whole server, which is often what we've done. You actually throw the whole thing into a huge shredder and use magnets to do the best we can. However, what we can do instead is take that server apart, change out the pieces that we need to, like modular design, and put it back together again, all in the same line or in the same building. And what that does, of course, is prevents us from needing to buy, transform, move, and assemble all those pieces of a server that we can actually reuse. So this is an example of remanufacturing. So it's not quite refurbishment, but it's remanufacturing, which is happening today. All the hyperscalers are doing this because it costs less and they can upgrade faster.
Yeah. Is anyone? It's fascinating the 3-minute part of it, because I've dug into this conversation a bit around how to reuse critical materials, wolframite, tin, gold, tantalum. The reason I'm interested in those commodities is they're the most associated with human rights abuse. And let's be honest, all commodities have been associated with human rights abuse for all time, because it's the hardest thing to get out of the ground. What I love about this conversation is you can fight the human rights abuse from a moral level, but if you can do it from an industrial process level, it just seems like you're cooking with fire. You're moving. Correct. Is it fair for me, in my limited knowledge of industrial processes like this, to think of circularity alongside conversations around nuclear power, desalinization of water, like these big problems around energy, around water, and in this case around minerals? But I'd imagine we're creating this layer of business and industry that starts to work alongside supply chains and actually informs product design so that things can be taken apart more easily down the road. Are we there yet, or is that a ways off?
Oh, we're certainly there.
Okay.
We're certainly there. A lot more is happening than people realize. It's just that they don't often say the word circular. And so we have a whole world of operations who choose a circular strategy without calling it that, because it's the best, most robust way to build resilience into our operations.
Great.
That community has no idea that they're contributing to a circular economy. The circular economy community tends to, and I don't mean to be overly critical, but tends to look at today's linear economy when we've had 100 years that we've actually built our economy based off of consumption. So we know that 100 years ago, the first time was decided to actually decrease product quality so that consumers had to buy twice as many in order to make sure that those companies stayed in business. So we always think, oh my gosh, nothing lasts as long as it used to. It doesn't. And that's real. And that's 100 years worth. And so as we start to say, what are different ways that we can transition, the circular economy community tends to say all things today are linear. Therefore, we need to find a net new approach. And again, I'm being overly critical here. The challenge that has is that these two communities aren't talking to each other. The circular economy community either doesn't have the language or the connections or know to go and check out large infrastructure. So for example, I work closely with a company called GXO. They have over 400 warehouses in the United States. They're already doing industrial repair, disassembly, refill programs for CPG, steaming programs for luxury textiles for clothing rental companies. They're already doing all of that at scale at 400 locations across the United States. And the idea with circularity is you really want it distributed and local, because you don't want stuff shipping all over the place, since that kind of defeats the whole point of reuse and increasing utilization of individual goods. But that type of infrastructure and capability is often not on the radar of the circular economy community. And the folks at GXO often don't know that those are actually promotable services to the circular economy community.
Right.
So there's a lot more that's happening now. There's also a whole conversation happening on what we might call material sovereignty, supply chain sovereignty, as in from a national security perspective.
Yes.
Can we run our country more independently? And given today's political environment, that's been a very popular range of discussions for what can happen. So I've been having a lot of conversation with members of the military, actually. And there's quite a bit that they're doing to take, let's say, body armor, and once it's had its useful life, to turn it back into powder that is virgin grade commodity. So there's a lot happening that we just often don't know exists. But thinking about it from an industrial process is, I think, the right way to go, because we actually use more material in the industrial world than we do in municipalities. It's almost like an accidental circularity, and it's happened out of pure operational need, which is the underlying argument that as we need more materials, we need to find them from other places. The last point I'll respond to what we said is, in almost all supply chains, we have slave labor. Almost all. So there's no world where you should be able to go get peeled shrimp for $6.99 a pound. That should not happen. That's happening because a child is somewhere sitting on a floor peeling that shrimp for you. And that is traditionally very difficult for us to get a hold of where are these bad behaviors happening throughout our supply chains. When we think about designing a circular supply chain, the cost to create work comes down. Now, you can't compete with free. But if we start to look at creating jobs around the United States or whichever community it is that we're looking at, the cost to create work comes down. And that's because the cost of materials is going to dramatically come down.
I feel like the conversation between responsible supply chains and circularity happened in one video I saw a year or so ago. The artist Dua Lipa interviewing Tim Cook. She just brought up child labor making the iPhones.
While I was researching for this interview, I came across some distressing articles about young kids mining cobalt in the Democratic Republic of Congo. And I guess it's a complicated issue for all tech companies. But I guess what I was wondering is, my new iPhone 15, can you guarantee that the cobalt that's in that phone has not been mined, using child labor in the DRC?
Yes, we can, because we do two things. Well, first of all, I should back up and say our objective over time is to take nothing from the earth to make our products.
I have a sense he might have been coached that this question was coming, because his answer was perfect, as most everything that comes out of his mouth. But it wasn't the answer I think people think about when they think of such a charged topic like child labor, because his answer was essentially circularity. Tim's answer to child labor or forced labor finding its way into Apple's supply chain was, we're starting to remove the critical materials that are typically associated with this and putting them back into the system. We're fixing the industrial process so that doesn't happen, which sat really well with me. That sounds scalable. Absolutely.
Yes.
Tell me more. Am I on track here when we're talking about circularity? You
are. I did not see that clip, but you're absolutely right. So if we start to look at where vulnerable communities continue to be vulnerable, it's often far away from us. And they put kids down mine shafts. That's the way that cobalt is mined. There's a fantastic New York Times article from a couple years ago that on their website is actually a pretty immersive experience as you scroll and you actually go into these mines. And that is in all of our electronics. Yeah. So all of our phones and a lot of our household appliances that are smart now have these items inside. So you should care as a consumer. Also, my plug is, if you're listening to this and you're in supply chain, the decisions that you make every day as a supply chain professional far outweigh the impact you have as a consumer. So do everything 100%. You want at home. Continue to model good behavior for community, but there's probably a few decisions you make in a year that will make a huge difference across communities around the world. So do take those decisions very seriously. If you're ever confused about the impact of the decision you're about to make, call me and I will help unconfuse you.
You seem, and I'm just learning more about you, but you seem to look at systems and look at bloat or inefficiencies in systems. And that seems to be, you're a bit of an explorer that way, where you want to uncover this and try to suss that out and fix it. I mean, that's what type of appetite do companies have for someone like you to come in, find these inefficiencies, to be able to fix these things? Only until recently has it become important in the world, like very recent. I kind of got adopted by the supply chain community, and I noticed that like I would go to marketing conferences and I would go to supply chain conferences, and the marketing conferences had Katy Perry for entertainment, and the supply chain conferences had like a 2-bit like magician. Like you can tell the budgets by the entertainment quality at these conferences, right? They're not given a lot of budget. And so that's just going to naturally make you an industry be self-protective and probably not that open to ideas. How do you get people to start seeing this? Because it's wildly fascinating, super exciting.
There's a lot there. So poor supply chain. We were so happy without anybody knowing who we were.
Who's we?
The supply chain community.
Oh, yeah.
It's only because of COVID that all of a sudden now it's like our parents are calling going like, I saw what you do on TV. Is that what you do? And it's like, yes, I had my first boss ever. She was at Microsoft, she's now at Apple. And she would laugh constantly saying like, my mother thinks I drive a truck for a living. Like that's what she thinks
Amazing.
I do. So anyway, yes. And part of this is that supply chain is primarily a cost center.
Yeah.
And all of us who work in supply chain do exactly what you described that I do, is you go in, understand how all the parts connect, and then try to fix the underlying challenge. That's fundamentally, that's what we do over and over and over. Because an interesting thing about a supply chain, is we're a series of independent companies who don't report to each other.
Yeah.
You have a contract with one up and one down, but a t-shirt takes 6 steps between planet and consumer, and a car takes 20. And so if we imagine and marvel at the fact that anything is on a shelf anywhere in the world, is pretty amazing that this series of independentness somehow comes together and works. So openness to ideas are certainly there. The challenge often becomes justifying a cost inside a cost center. So the pushback I get is rarely from supply chain professionals. It's often in how do we go get funding for something that's either technology, which is really what I do in my day job, or for circularity, or for repair program. We have to engage X part of the business. And because we were somewhat of an unknown function inside the business for so long, storytelling is not a core competency for the supply chain professional. Last year, my friend Douglas Kent and I wrote a book about sustainable supply chains. And in there, we actually have a section on storytelling and give a lot of examples about how to tell a short, medium, or longish story about whatever it is that we're trying to accomplish in the sustainability world, including debunking some of the myths that this is always more expensive and it's never going to work and we have no partners and none of that is true anymore. And so this idea of how do we almost self-advocate to say supply chain is pretty awesome. The challenge of supply chain, I find, is that people either get it or they don't. And so people, as you have a conversation about supply chain and systems and this impacts us over here and inventory needs to flow in like this, then our partner strategy needs to look like this. Some people get real excited about that and other people just glaze over. They're like, just tell me what you need. So figuring out how to manage your stakeholders through that process is always going to be the challenge, regardless of what we're trying to change inside of the business.
Interesting. We're going to have to talk more about how to tell stories inside of supply chains. I think one of the most important stories that supply chain professionals, procurement professionals need to be able to tell is the cost justification. Every CFO wants to hear the hero's journey where the end of the story is ROI. And how long is that journey? So when we as a company are constantly meeting with customers who need to make a use case or a business case to their superiors to invest in supply chain risk software. What type of storytelling devices do people inside of these companies that need to go pitch, hey, we want to do software or we want to do more circularity? What types of devices do they need to use, and how do they tell the story of ROI? Because remember, we're all graded in quarters, not decades. And I feel like the era of ESG 2030, 2050, I just feel like that era is over. I don't know if people got the memo. Like, you can't get a win for that. You've got to show wins in quarters now. How do people tell the story so they can show those kinds of wins?
Yeah, the best way is to start with what we own. And the best set of expenses that we own are really the utilities used in our facilities. So often called wages, water, air, gas, electric, steam. And so if we think about a warehouse or a factory and the utilities that go in, we can make a few decisions. We can use renewable energy, which is actually often usually cheaper now than traditional. I spoke with a team once that put effectively an SPF sunscreen paint on the outside of their facility, and it lowered the inside by 10% or 10 degrees. Yep. Water reuse is happening in water constrained areas, and all of these result in cost savings. And so first we say, hey, we're going to circulate the resources that we need for our operations. And look, there's a cost savings. In year cost savings, in quarter is often extremely difficult to do because it takes a quarter to even kick off a project. But in year, there are potential ways to do that, which is fun. And that's about scoping down the project to the right size and focus area in order to get work done.
Okay. So if someone is trying to push some type of spend that they want to do to improve operations, sustainability, all the rest of it, they need to think in 1 year terms of cost savings. Yeah.
So I would encourage them, but it also depends on the business. So in some cases, you should all know your finance person and you should all know how they operate the business. And if you don't, that should be step one.
Well, that seems to be the step one of everyone who comes on this pod, is from people who worked in sustainability at Unilever and Starbucks. Everything is about soft diplomacy. Everything is like, if you want to get your thing done, you've got to work up your people skills, which storytelling is one of them. But also just I would argue, and maybe just the ability to listen. I just feel like, yes, we need to know how to tell stories, but we need to know how to listen and understand plot points in other people's stories in order to build the diplomacy, not the extraction, but the diplomacy to be able to build something beautiful that where 1 + 1 = 10. And I think that is a skill set that the business schools, from when I'm seeing people coming across my transom, I just don't see the soft diplomacy skills. I don't see the listening skills. I don't see the probing question skills that people need in order to build a coalition of the willing inside of a company to be able to do big things. How are we teaching this next generation of business leaders to listen, or should we, start our own school on listening?
We should start our own school on listening.
Yeah, just listen. No one talks. You just listen.
Yeah, just a room of silence.
Yes.
I think one skill set that every time I talk to a group of students, I implore them to go and learn good old-fashioned problem solving. Mm-hmm. And it could be Lean, it could be Six Sigma, it could be A3, like whatever the world is, but old-fashioned problem solving. No technology involved. Sit down, figure out the problem, write a good problem statement, which is incredibly difficult to do.
Yes, it is.
And in order to do that, you have to go and listen. But before you listen, you got to be curious and endlessly curious on why does that happen? Oh, that's over there. Oh, this person does it. And then you've got to be patient, because you know what people don't want to do? Stop what they're doing and talk to you. So that's part of a benefit of being in an office. So if your team is back in office, this does actually work better to walk the hallways and say, hey, I've got a question for you. This thing came up. And then you get to go be a detective and to start with a really good question and then listen to the complete answer and go get your next clue. And it's almost like doing a scavenger hunt often to put together a good problem statement and then the underlying causes. And that's what got me really in love with this space, is that's how I spent the first couple of years of my career. Yeah. And that the patience and the resilience and the curiosity to wait through that whole process and push and follow up and ask, that set of skill sets is tough to find.
Tell me the difference between intelligence and curiosity.
It's a really great question. I would put intelligence as a measurable aptitude, akin to, if somebody's a genius or something, their IQ. I would put that there. Curiosity I'm not sure if there is. I'm sure somebody put a measure on it somewhere in some university for some PhD program. But to me, that's a hunger of delving in to explore and learn. Somebody can be very, very, very smart, but not put a lot of information in their brains. But they're still smart. They can solve the thing in front of them. And a curiosity is, to me, a drive to go and explore and find out. That is hard. And if folks are keeping track of a lot of these AI conversations and the impact on human workforces, when it comes down to it, this becomes the skill of the future. So if all of our busy work gets to go away and humans are left to do the hard and fun work of strategy and problem solving and creativity and creating, still we have a leg up on that over AI, then we need to be fostering a curiosity. Imagine you don't have to rush through your day and you actually have the time and the space to sit with a problem and sit with a solution and go and explore. To me, that sounds awesome. Nobody has time to do that right now because we're inundated with all the busy work. And if we can move the busy work off our plates, then do we have a leftover capacity and skill set to handle having time in our day to go and actually add value?
Businesses are the best. I came out of a creative field earlier in my career, which is all about making things, but nothing gets made without a due date and a forcing function. No artist can produce a painting without the looming exhibition or publish date for a book or whatever it is. So we need explorers, but explorers with an accountability to a goal that's bigger than them. And it seems like circularity is one of those spaces that needs curious thinkers that have just the right amount of pragmatism and accountability to deliver something to businesses. And I'm fascinated with this space. I want to talk to you more about this space because I just love finding solutions that solve multiple problems at once, reduce costs, reduce waste, reduce exploitation in the world. Like that to me is like I want to be an explorer in that space. Lastly, what is the number one most common avoidable mistake you see supply chain leaders in regards to sustainability, circularity, responsibility, sustainability, you name it?
The assumption that it'll cost more.
Tell me more.
As budgets get cut, anything that doesn't seem core also gets cut. And unless it's been well researched and understood, often anything that feels or smells like a more responsible way to operate often gets cut because it doesn't make it into the consideration for scenario analysis, which is a mistake.
Yep. There
are shocking numbers of examples of a better resin being cheaper and more available. We already talked about renewable energy. It may be that a responsible use of technology in a warehouse, for example, that can de-risk the safety levels in that warehouse would actually be less expensive. I think the challenge, unfortunately, is that we have to restate these capabilities that may not have the word good inside of it 100%. In order to be explored.
Yeah. Doesn't and we talk about this a lot on this. We're just words make worlds, and sometimes those worlds die out, and we need to find new words for the same worlds. And it seems like as we read the headlines of like, oh, we're cutting budget on ESG, it's like, well, that's because you moved most of your budget to marketing around ESG instead of implementation, and it was really just a veneer. And you're not cutting anything that was actually doing anything. The companies that actually did something with it, they're actually statistically performing better. And it's all about authenticity, about like the exciting technology that where people are applying AI and actually solving problems instead of just talking about solving problems. That to me is where to focus our attention at. And I know that you're doing a lot of work around agentic and all the rest of it. I hope you'll come back on the pod. We can talk about that. I had it on my list, but we just stayed in circularity because obviously you're a wealth of knowledge and such a good teacher, such a good explorer. You are so intelligent, and your intelligence is approachable. You've done the hard work of being accessible. Thank you so much, and thank you for coming on this.
Thank you. It's very kind.
All right. Thank you. Take care. This is the one thing, the part of our show where we dig deeper into one idea from our interview. Any change you are trying to make in your life, whether it's at work or on yourself or on the world at large, requires an entrepreneurial mindset. It doesn't require a strategic mindset. It requires an entrepreneurial mindset. We like to believe that change can be achieved with a good strategy and execution against that strategy, and reality just is a wall we run into because that just doesn't work. Any new improvement we are trying to make as companies or as individuals requires us to fail, or actually requires us to innovate, then fail, then pivot, then repeat. Innovate, fail, pivot, repeat. Innovate, fail, pivot, repeat. Oh my gosh, it's hard. Because change is hard. Because change doesn't want to change. You want it to change. The world doesn't want to change. Your life doesn't want to change. Your job doesn't want to change. Your world doesn't want to change. You have to show up with an idea that doesn't yet exist, a belief in a world that doesn't yet exist, and work and innovate towards that until it becomes obvious. It's hard to stay in this mode for a sustained period of time, but for those who do, those are the ones that push society further and push themselves further. A big part of driving change is being able to adapt. I know this personally. Building companies and trying to build movements, you don't start off with all the information. You start off with an idea and some hope and some delusion, and you start running. That's why circularity might be something that responsible supply chain leaders should be learning more about. And I hope this podcast today was something that helped. It's clearly a new way of doing production, but it's far from theoretical. Just, look at Apple. It's okay to not know everything and not be an expert in this era. And it is an era that we're in, this era of supply chain resilience. I find the only people calling themselves experts are the ones who talk for a living, but don't actually do anything. For more information on this, see Steve Jobs' lecture at MIT. The people who are doing things develop scar tissue because they're actually having to be responsible for the results. Again, those are the ones that innovate, fail, pivot, and repeat. If you can get beyond the jargons and the theory that's out there around this, there's actually some really exciting possibilities here that, if implemented, can protect people, planet, and profits at scale. And that's what we're trying to do with this community. So thanks for listening. Please make sure to subscribe to our podcast. You can do it right there. There's got to be a button somewhere near your eyeballs. That way we can let you know when the next episode's coming out. And don't forget to go to freedom.ai for more updates.